Hello, everybody. Any libertarians in the house tonight? Any excited libertarians? Anybody fired up and excited? All right. Well, I want to, again, thank you guys. Thank everybody for being here again. This is a wonderful time for us, for all of us, as individuals, collectively, and as a party, and especially people here representing the state of California and the party of the future. So, yes, exactly. You guys should be excited about that. So, anyway, first, before I get started, my name is Baron Bruno, and I am formerly a candidate for the 62nd Assembly District down in Southern California that encompassed LAX, SpaceX with Elon Musk, and a lot of the beach communities, as well as Inglewood, Gardena, Lawndale, and Hawthorne, a very diverse community representing a lot of different people that we accept into this party. And I was really excited to run as not only a former candidate for Assembly, but a future presidential candidate for this party as well. So, keep that in mind. Anyway, first of all, I want to thank, before I get going here, I just got to say, these two people right here, the colorful people in the front, if the Imhoff couple could stand, I got to tell you, these two people, I mean, putting on an event, we come to it, we think, oh, this is great, everything's working out well, I don't have ice in my drink or whatever, but we were expecting Robert to run up and fill your glass, but it's really incredible the passion and drive that these guys have shown. I just got to know them recently, and I am just overwhelmingly impressed. So I just want to say thank you both for literally all the stuff you're doing and continuing to do. I know that one of you is also has probably some future announcements with the party as well that I may or may not be inclined to say now, but I will keep some secrets. So if you want to learn a bit more, feel free to talk to me.
The internet is recording.
No idea what you're talking about. Anyway, of course, please stay. So again, also, hopefully most of you had gotten out and seen the debate that we just had. So I wanted to first acknowledge the mayor himself, Jeff Hewitt, for moderating. He thanked everybody else for being up there, but what a great job moderating. So I want to say to our three amazing candidates. How exciting is this? I mean, you look at the party, and I haven't nearly been here since 1971. I was about this big, but the party has grown so much, and so much has happened. And you look at it, and we've got to be excited and share that passion and the unified messaging, which I know we're going to talk about. I know some of the people I'm going to be speaking are going to be talking about messaging and how to get the libertarian message to the constituents out there that are so disenfranchised right now. People from both parties are what I call Coke and Pepsi politics. Two toxic, addictive killers. And that's what we're in right now. That is the political landscape that, for whatever reason, apathy or not, that this country has decided is best for us. And so I campaigned on some basic principles that I'll go into earlier, or a little bit later, but I want to start with a pretty basic quote. I think some of you guys have heard this quote, but Will Rogers had said that even if you're on the right track, you're going to get run over if you don't keep going, right? Right? How many people, by show of hands, think they're on the right track?
We are. Okay.
Hopefully that's the majority. I was hoping for all hands, but we are. I think most of us think that we're on the right track, but how many people, a second show of hands, how many people think we need to keep going, to keep that message going, to actually get some more elected officials here? That's right. Okay. So, a little bit about me. I grew up, I was born in San Gabriel, California. Like I said, I ran for 62nd Assembly District, now an at-large member on the executive committee. And my background was in Wall Street, commercial real estate, training and development. And I wouldn't have actually made it, not only in the primary ballot, because I want to thank Ted Brown, who's, I think if Ted Brown calls you, you know you're running for office. That's all I can tell you. If Ted Brown calling you, you're running for office. So, Ted, you've inspired a lot of people here today. Susan was talking about it earlier today, but you're a game changer for the party. And just from the heart of hearts, man, we love you. And we all, literally, this wouldn't be happening if it weren't for you. So I mean that, and I think a lot of people, if you don't get the thank yous and kudos and stuff, we all need to be supporting each other. But Ted, thank you again for all that you're doing as well. So we all have that passion, right? I had it, as a candidate and future candidate. And this is something that we need to share going forward. We need to look at what's the one thing that we can do to make everything else easier for us and hopefully unnecessary. And I took that from a book called The One Thing from Gary Keller. I manage a real estate team, and a lot of what I do is going out and shaking hands, meeting people, solving problems, thinking outside the box, thinking creatively, and forging things into a new direction, what I call transforming the real estate experience. And we're transforming the political experience as libertarians. And I want that to sink home because we are transforming the political landscape of not only our local communities in our state, but also this nation and the world. It's a very, very powerful, amazing thing. And you guys all, as individuals, if you start thinking and manifesting positivity and manifesting victories, we all talk about what's the W-I-N word that we talk about all the time?
Win.
There you go. We got to think about being winners because we are. Now, it might not show up in the ballot box with us getting the crown, but each incremental step that we make as a party and as individuals, on a personal level, spiritual level, political level, these are what's going to make things happen easier into the future. And this is what we all have to realize, is that we all, individually and collectively, are very powerful. And we can be the catalyst for change.
Yeah.
So how many, thank you. Thank you. So we talk about, as I said when I ran on basic principles. And I know that there's, I think, 26 pages of what libertarianism is. There's the big L and the little L and all these things that make up our party. But what I would want to encourage everyone tonight is that we all share the same values and the same message. We all want liberty and freedom. We know that the government is taking control and taking away our freedoms and taking away our liberties and deciding what's best for us. That's not what we want. That's not good for us. That's not good for our families. That's not good for our communities. And that's not good for the nation. Thank you. When a government, for the people, by the people, gives our young people, the innovators that are creating Facebook and YouTube and Google, in this very place that we're sitting right now, the people that are in this vicinity are changing the way that we do business on this planet, including the speakers that I'll be introducing here later today. They're innovators. We are political innovators, and we need to merge the two. We need to share that passion with these people and get the message to resonate. So think about the competencies that you have, the skills that you have, the network that you have, and what can you do to get that message out there. Now, a lot of people might not have the financial capacity or the time or whatever, but there's always something that you have to contribute. And we're influencers. We're not an information database. That's the difference between who we are and the other people. The other people are telling you what to do. It's the party politics. We bring the party back into party politics. That's the difference with who we are, right? This is about individual liberties. This is not about a government who's telling our, again, these 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that they have the license to kill, and they're responsible enough to carry an M16, but they're irresponsible and don't have the license to celebrate until they're 21 years of age.
Right.
That's ridiculous. And that's something easy that resonates with people. That's a message that I went out and I campaigned on, and believe me, it hit home hard. And I'm not even a military guy, but I know that the Second Amendment rights is something we're very passionate about. But I would encourage people that if you know that the Second Amendment rights might be fractioning the people that are interested in the party, take it to a different level. Take the message into a different direction so that you get that buy-in and you get those people saying, hey, how can I not agree with choice? 2 choices? What happened to 31 flavors? Did they go out of business?
Nope.
We're better than this. We deserve choice. Everything in our lives is about choice. Everything that we drink, we eat, we wear, it's all about choice. And that's something that's an easy message to resonate to people. Accountability. Are the people on the left and on the right being held accountable? To themselves, to their constituents? Big business, maybe. But these are messages, again, that you can get out there and tell people about. Accountability and respect. Are your politicians respecting you? Are they coming into the communities and asking, what can I do to support you? I am here to represent you. So
think of this as you go on after this convention. We're gonna be excited. We're gonna be passionate. We're gonna be driven. But keep this thinking going, and share this online with people. We've got to make that message simple and clear and concise, and move forward as a party and get the numbers going. How many people here, just by show of hands, have run for office before? Can I show of hands? How about that? Almost everybody. How many people here new that are considering running for office? Oh, okay, so half the hand. Half the hand. Don't worry, Ted's already, you look at your phone, he's already speed dialing. So you've got a text message or whatever. You got a meeting tomorrow at 8 in the morning before we start at 9. Good luck. Anyway, listen, the people that are raising their hands right now are the people, in essence, that are helping their communities, they're helping California, and they're helping make change in the world, and they're helping this nation. And how many people in here, as I close out, and I'm going to say this quote one more time, and it's going to tie into how I end up here. But again, we may be on the right track, right? But we need to keep going so that we don't get run over. We need that momentum, okay? So everybody here, we are the evangelicals for libertarianism and for freedom and for respect and accountability and choice. We are the evangelicals that can make the change in America, starting here in California. And I'm going to take it upon myself to personally start doing a lot of special things for us, which I will talk offline about. But more importantly, quick question before I close out. What's the best nation on earth?
Your nation.
How about donation? How about donation? My friends, I'm going to challenge you here, okay? I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge everybody. Because yes, we live in a phenomenal nation, right? A phenomenal country, and literally the state that's making things happen globally. So, but we can't do it with just talk. So I'm going to empower you guys now. There's sheets on your tables, right? And I know everybody's in the middle of eating right now, just like this. And guess what? It came from Ted Brown. What do you know? So all I'm asking everybody, if you can do this, really think deep down. I know we've always made financial commitments, time commitments, etc. But I want everybody, if they can, to take that out, to fill it out, and to put any positive cash flow on there. I don't care if it's 1 cent. Because what happens is when you have skin in the game and you're financially committed to something, and I'm sure our next speakers will attest to this, when you have a vested interest in something, you're that much more passionate about it. You're that much more willing and driven to succeed. So even if it's 1 cent, 5 cents, $5, it's expensive to run a campaign. Trust me, I spent a considerable amount of money running. And the guys that are running for our governorship here, they're going to have about $8,500 just to have their candidate statement, and to file is about $3,500. So it's about $8,000 to $8,500 per candidate. Now, if we're going to grow the candidate base in California and in this nation, we all need to step up a little bit. So I'm going to ask you today, again, if you guys can do anything on there positive, because I want to see if we can collectively, everybody in this room, if we can get 100%, and we can tell everybody that we, as the first conference in Libertarian Party history, that we have 100% of people donating to the party. Wouldn't that be a cool message to send out to people? That shows passion and drive and commitment? Even if it's 1 cent, if we can show people and tell people on social media, 100% of the people here in the state of California committed to the party financially. That's a powerful message. And that's what I want to leave this with. I want to thank everybody. It's exciting to be here. You guys share that love and light and compassion, and we can do this. We really can. No more living in fear. We're going to manifest change, and we're going to make it happen. So thank you, guys. Yeah. That being said, take a swig of your glass, 2 or 3. Next up, I'm going to invite our first speaker, a legend around these parts and in California. His name is Chris Roofer. All right. I'll tell you about it for those of you who don't know Chris. Chris Roofer founded the Morningstar Company in 1970. Very interesting, around the same time the Libertarian Party started, right? Driving 1 truck, hauling tomatoes and peaches from farms to processing factories. The enterprise today includes growing tomato seedlings, transplanting, harvesting tomatoes, and trucking them to 3 processing factories throughout Central California, which processes about, get this, 30% of the U.S. crop.
Wow.
Repeat that, 30% of the U.S. crop this man is involved with. That's amazing, folks. He personally designs the factories and oversees construction while providing vision and guidance to all facets of the business. Throughout his career, he has actively and consistently supported libertarian organizations and causes, including the formation of his own foundation, the Foundation for Harmony and Prosperity, which operates to improve humanity and increase well-being. His education includes degrees in economics, agricultural sciences, and business, with concentrations in finance and strategic planning. Chris and his wife Melody have 4 children and reside in Sacramento, California. He is a leader of this party, and he's going to help set the direction. And everybody, let's give him a warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Rufus.
So if I'm so well known, you know I don't do this, I don't speak too much. But Barron's the kind of person that we need running for office, and lots more, hundreds more, to make this change. So politics are very, very important. Libertarian Party is very, very important. So we either cause change through our beliefs and our philosophies through and get cultural change through bloody revolutions, or we've got to spend the time, the hard work, and talking to people and convincing people that they need to change their paradigms of how the world works, changing the culture and also changing politics. It seems to go hand in hand. Politics, to me, are a good messaging tool, and we should use those as much as we can. But you got to get the culture change to get the right politicians. But you know, a lot of the laws and regulations that we deal with affect how people grow up and their values. So it really goes together. So I'd like to improve the effectiveness of the movement. For cultural change to move in libertarian direction, we've got to market our product. And I'm going to go over some things here. I haven't put this together and talked before. I put the last part together, which hopefully there's a few insights I've shared with a few people here already. But you may not like what I have to say. So some marketing basics. So marketing is really key to what we've got to get done. Like I say, bloody revolution, and so get your guns and be the sharpshooter, and we've got to really get our act together to market our philosophy. There's so much work done on our philosophy. We got like maybe some work to do. Some people think there's some more work to do, but it's really marketing our message. So some basic marketing is that you've got a good product and you have a unique product. You know, what's unique about your product? You got to understand the intrinsic value of your product. We've got to have a good brand, and to have a good brand, you've got to message that brand and be consistent in the message that you provide. Too complicated, and you can mess it up. So we got to rather simplify our message, and really push it hard and be consistent with it. So our product. So for me, our product, it's libertarians with a social philosophy, and it's a vision which is directed to advancing human well-being. It's a vision of providing people with an opportunity to live a flourishing life. So what kind of life and vision can we provide for people? But for me, it's a vision of having more material wealth to actually, drive around or enjoy your life. That's fairly minor, but that's important. It's a vision of having the mental capacity and knowledge to be able to navigate your life in a physical environment, a social and physical environment. It's being so psychologically mature to handle the things that maybe you don't like. You can deal with things that are out there that cause adversity in your life. We want a safe environment. We want a clean environment. So we want people to be physically fit so they can enjoy their relationships and enjoy the outdoors. So we want people to be spiritually sound. Not necessarily that doesn't always have to do with religion, but there's a spirit there. So we'd like to have people who have a flourishing life. To me, that's what we really have to sell, is a better opportunity for a flourishing life. So for me, libertarianism is a social philosophy. It's not a political philosophy. Recognizes 3 fundamental aspects of human nature. This is how I come to libertarianism, which I haven't found anybody else comes from this direction. But I look at human nature and I look at three things. It seems to be universal that people want to be happy. They want to flourish. They want to enjoy a life of well-being. And if you go down to even dogs and flowers, I mean, when it's cold outside, the dog gets out in the sun. When it's too warm, the dog gets in the shade. It's looking for pleasure, looking for happiness in a holistic sense. I think this is universal to human beings as otherwise. The second thing is that inherent in human nature is when people maliciously initiate physical force against a person and they're harmed. Are they happier? Are they meeting their mission? Is that improving well-being or not? And think about it. Is there an instance where somebody can maliciously harm you, where you'd be happier for it? I don't think so. So I think this is a universal truth of human nature. The second one is the theft of people's property. And people's property is important because it's what's required to live. I mean, food, clothing, shelter, communications. So people's property is important. And can you think of an instance where somebody has stolen your property where you are happier for it at that moment? So I look at these three things and they seem to be universally true and inherent in human nature. So these aspects of human nature I think are inherent and universal, and they form the basis for a principle found in nature. So principles found in nature are discovered, they're not invented by people. They hold true over all time, space, and circumstances. They're not compromisable through human dictate or circumstances. So an action will have a specific result, regardless of whether you believe it or not. So there's gravity and it works. You cannot believe it, but it works. And if you take a certain action, you will get the result. So recognizing these three aspects of human nature, social philosophy that I've got results in a principle, which is to the degree individuals refrain from maliciously initiating physical force against other folks or their property, and they do what they agree to do, human beings are going to be happier, live in more harmony, and be more prosperous. People will be able to flourish. Recognizing the principle of human nature, for me, a libertarian, if you want to describe what is a libertarian, there's someone that understands this principle, they accept the values that are inherent there, they act in accordance with those principles, and they act to persuade others that they should live with these values. A libertarian does not use agents, personally or through political methods, such as a voting booth, to initiate physical force or to commit fraud on their behalf. So the product of libertarianism that has to be sold is our vision of greater human harmony, happiness, and prosperity. So messaging. This is where I might upset a few folks. But the current messaging is rather eclectic and inconsistent. To build a strong brand, you need to be consistent and you need to consistently deliver the message. So what do we got on the definition of libertarianism? So Wikipedia says it's a collection of political philosophies and movements that uphold liberty as a core principle. So a collection of philosophies, that's a good description of a philosophy. So Merriam-Webster says an advocate of the doctrine of free will. The Advocates for Self-Government website currently says one who advocates maximum individual rights and minimizing the role of the state. Well, those rights include the right to an income and the right to health insurance, et cetera, so it's not particularly specific. Sharon Harris, love her, she's great. She's a libertarian's belief in liberty. And that's quite literally true. But you know, selling freedom and liberty is like selling ice to Eskimos. You really ask people on the street that we're trying to talk to, and they say, are you free? How can the answer be anything other than, yes, I'm free already, why do I need you? You can travel. I mean, maybe someone of reasonably some economic standing, but you can get on a train, I guess, as a hobo when you get hitchhiked. But you can travel so many places. We're not restricted. You can wear any clothes you want. You can talk to whoever you want. You can say mostly everything you want. The only really thing is, you don't cry wolf in a, what do you call it, in a movie theater. and get people trampled on. But the free speech, frankly, we have a lot of freedom. Traveling, whatever we want. So selling that, I'm not too big on that. I don't think it's a great sellable point. Google says, I'm very interested. I ask people what's the definition. I had to look up Google, and it's like something I haven't heard of before. 22-year-olds make up new definitions. But it says, and it's just, libertarianism is an extreme laissez-faire political philosophy advocating only minimal state intervention in the lives of citizens. But it's an extreme laissez-faire political philosophy, and then how minimal is the intervention. Now, Gary Johnson's campaign ran on libertarianism being fiscally conservative and socially tolerant. He changed the phrase, because most of the time people, libertarians, will use the phrase fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Well, inviting a full conservative person to be half conservative and half liberal, or otherwise, I think invites no conservative or no liberal to be libertarian. So I think we ought to watch that. I don't know, I know there's some males that want to be females and females that want to be males, but have you found anybody that wants to be half and half? David Bose is a great person and a great advocate for our movement. Is a phenomenal person. His definition, he's written several books on libertarianism, which many of you probably have and read or reviewed. So he says libertarianism is a philosophy of freedom. But a couple of sentences later he says, you can only have freedom when the law protects your freedom. Now, I mean, anybody answer this, I've already asked this, but what is your ultimate protection from someone initiating physical force against you? What is your ultimate protection?
Your own.
Where's all the gun rights folks? Right here, your own defense?
I feel like it would be cheaper.
What? Our guns, yeah. Keep our guns for defense. I think wrong paradigms lead to some very wrong conclusions and policies. I believe that our freedom is ultimately protected by the values of other people around us. So it's the values that we hold that I don't want to use force against you. That is the ultimate protection that we have. And you don't hear any politicians talking about that. So the concept there, if you don't understand that, well, what do? Okay, we want to protect citizens? Yes. We don't want crime? Of course not. But laws, regulations, police, prisons, those are the answers that we've got out in society when in fact aren't addressing the issue. So I believe freedom is not based on those things, but it's on the values of other people. Evidence in our philosophy is not the individualism that we message. Now, I and people in this room, I think, understand what we mean by individualism. But as we message, it comes across differently. Instead of individualism message, I think that our philosophy really is a collegial philosophy. We have a very strong interest and we're invested in the values of other people. So our messaging of individualism, freedom, liberty, selfishness, being libertine, as evidenced by our National Convention, rights, self-reliance, fiscal responsibility is problematic. I understand these things and understand correctly. They're on target, yes. But as we message to other folks, where's that going? Why does the liberty movement have, I always look up here, so, all right, how many women are in that audience and how many people are in the audience? So come on, you're a woman, come on, raise your hand. So I'm guessing that we have about 30% female and 70% male in our movement. Why is that? What's going on here? So I think the message is not attractive to female, messaging as historically perceived, we've used, is not particularly attractive to females or liberals. You know, it's absence and sense of caring, safety, and community, which in fact our philosophy should deliver. More caring, more safety, and more community interest and involvement. So personally, I prefer to advance a message and a vision of advancing human well-being through human respect. We should be the party of human respect. And I know we've got the party of principle on there, which I understand, I agree with, but messaging-wise, I think the party of human respect would work better. So as a note, virtually all the descriptions and discussions refer to libertarianism as a political philosophy, right? But look at the definition of political science, at least from Webster's. It's the science and the principles, science of the principles, organization, and methods of government. Yet, virtually all the discussions revolve around individuals and the question of what the relationship is between individuals and government, and what the place of government is. It's not the workings of government. And that's why I personally insist that I consider it a social philosophy. However, there are political ramifications. So, for example, I a few years ago asked myself, how do people come to affiliate with a given political party? I don't know how this is going to work here, but so my belief is that I took it from somebody's born and they got their unique genetics, all right? And then there's some impact there. I don't know what the percentage is, what level. But then the individuals grow up and they're impacted. The messaging that hits them is their parents, their family, their peers, teachers, religion, and all sorts of media. These messages are coming in. And they're building their values. They're building their personal values of how to live their life and what they think about other people and how they should live their lives. But their personal values. They're very strongly ingrained. How many in here consider themselves extroverts? How many consider themselves introverts? That's typical for our audience, but we need strong extroverts, okay? So, people are strong religious faith. Some have no religion, and some are atheists. But these are very strongly held personal values, and I don't see how they change much. But now, sometime in a person's life, they come across politics. And people who are of, I consider, liberal orientation, they have a relatively higher sense of caring and social justice. And those conservatives that have a relatively higher and substantially higher than liberals, respect for tradition, authority, and sanctity, which are personal values. So you come across politics, and of course, as you're growing up, you're sifting, and you're getting your friends, and people you associate with, and things you associate with. And so you get more liberal friends and more conservative friends. Conservatives with conservatives, where they say birds of a feather flock together. And then politics come along, and whether you're taking civics, and somewhere between the age of 8, somebody told me the other day they got interested in politics, but more like maybe it's 14, 15, 16, 20 years old, come interested in politics. And so you're with your friends, and who do you associate with? So you automatically, if you're liberal, go to be a Democrat. And you're conservative, well, you associate now as a Republican. You belong to the tribe, the political tribe that your friends belong to, your family in many cases. So when politics become an issue, you make a choice, but I think people, they virtually automatically make this choice. They never consider a very, very important fundamental issue. So I got a little game here. So it's, I look at personal values and I look at social values. So personal values on the left, and so people generally liberal or conservative, some mixture. I think I kind of fit in the middle myself. And then, but from a social ethics perspective, people aren't asking the question, how do I live my personal life and relate to other people? It's a social philosophy. How do I relate to other human beings? So philosophy is really about how do things work. So what's best to base my relationship with another person on? What values? Well, every relationship is trading. We're trading, whether we're trading kisses, we're trading cars, we're trading employment for money, we're trading. And there's 2 ways to trade. You get something from somebody else. Persuade, like pay $1 million for the dinner and you get some food. Or coerce, physically coerce. So there's social values, there's social ethics, whichever one you want to say. So there's persuasion and coercion. Now, if you ask people individually how they relate on the left, and then ask them how they relate their social values, the vast majority of people, 90% plus, will choose what on their social values? Persuasion. Of course I use persuasion. I don't hurt my friends. everybody's a libertarian in their personal life. If you're not a libertarian in your personal life, you don't have any friends. You go around hurting people, you go around stealing their stuff, pretty soon people get the message. And you don't have any friends. But for a liberal, someone of liberal personal persuasion, social justice, I want to see people better off, caring for people, or people shouldn't be in the streets, they should be better off, they should have health insurance. Yet they're willing to accept coercion as a method of advancing their values. What quadrant would they fit in, and what would that political party be? I'm asking.
The upper right is Democrat, the lower right is Republican, and the two left ones are Libertarian.
Well, you already took the test. So frankly, and a conservative would associate with the Republican Party if they believe in use coercion. But don't ever hear ask that question. But if you're a strong liberal of personal persuasion, your personal values are fall in a liberal quadrant, and you have personal value, I'm not going to use physical force against other folks to advance my values, you would have to associate as a libertarian. And the same thing for a conservative. I'm not sure what happens next here. Okay, that's the end. A couple of things coming out of this. One, I believe that the Democrats are fighting and they're advancing their values and making their arguments with the Republicans, with everybody that should vote for a Democrat, and vice versa. But what's really going on here is a liberal is trying to convince a conservative to be a liberal. And the conservatives are trying to convince liberals to be conservatives. All right, how many here would like to switch hands? You're now an extrovert after a 5-minute discussion. How long have you been an extrovert? How long have you been an introvert? These are very strongly held personal values. They're not going to change, and so that's what you see. I mean, fine, the Democrats win some, the Republicans win some, and it goes back and forth. And of course, as we know, the world politically gets a little more soft in our laws and regulations. So that's one insight, is that that's not a winning game. That's just a game of as you can see it, fear-mongering, and half the people voted, I don't know what the number is, half the people voted for Hillary because they didn't want Donald, half the people voted for Donald, didn't want Hillary. That's not a progressive, positive message or action to take. But what's further insightful for me, at least, to the degree this is true, is that we should disassociate. In my mind, the last few years, I've disassociated liberal because I think it's a person's personal values, and they're good values, and Democrat. And I disassociated conservative from Republican. Because frankly, a good liberal, a person of good personal values, I mean, what people want justice, people want people to be well off, they care about people. Conservatives do too. That measure's not that far off between conservatives and liberals. And conservatives, okay, they respect tradition, but just, you know, your traditions are your traditions. Mine are mine, leave mine alone. They're good values. They're good values. Both those people should be libertarians. They really should be. We have the largest market, conceptually, of all of them, because we can attract, if it's phrased correctly, if it's messaged correctly, if it's thought of correctly. We should have liberals and not ask them to be conservatives. We should have conservatives and not ask them to be liberals. Just ask them to tolerate each other and use persuasion instead of coercion. I think that should work. It's my belief that it would work. So we're not asking them to change their values. We don't have to ask them to change their values. So when you get peace and prosperity, and the big example I always use is religion. How many religions, official, heartfelt religions, do we have in this country?
Lots.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds. And yet, everybody gets what they want, and we live in peace. Huh. Everybody gets what they want. Everybody's allowed to go and practice their religion as they wish. They all get what they want. The same thing in our commercial society. You know, capitalism is just a trade of goods and services through persuasion. Government is, very simply stated, the trade of goods and services through coercion. A very simple distinction. And so we're all about persuasion. And if you think about it, if you're going to sell things, you need to have a unique selling proposition. What's our unique selling proposition? It has to be tolerance. Tolerance, frankly, phrased better, come up with a better word, folks, but human respect. So that's the only thing we really have that's unique is human respect. We don't have marijuana policies unique. We don't have fiscal responsibilities unique. We don't have any of those policies that are unique. The only one we have is tolerance and respect for other human beings. So that is, that's what I believe is the message we should proceed with. That's my position on the point. That's why you come up with something better. I'd love to see it. I love being wrong if I can see, wow, now I don't have to look like an idiot next time I talk. I don't have any questions or what the timing is, but that's all I've got. Thank you very, very much.
Extremely powerful, right? Simple message. Respect. Human respect and dignity, guys. That's it really hits home, and these are the things, again, as individuals and collective as a party, let's not lose sight of it once we leave this room and this convention. We've got to spread that and use that ripple effect of positivity and love and inclusion and really make things happen. So on behalf of everyone, Chris, thank you so much again for all you're doing for the party. And I think what we might want to do is, if you do have any questions, what we do is if they're up for it, maybe after our second speaker comes up, we can maybe do a forum together to get some questions answered. I think everybody would benefit from that. So, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next hero for the party, who's obviously. I had a small intro for him, but now it's a little longer. So so I'm glad I got this because I don't want to read on my phone. But anyway, this is a man who's done amazing things for a lot of people here. Patrick Byrne, for you guys, anybody here have ever heard of Overstock.com? Everybody does, of course. Well, the big boss is here, and he's a libertarian. How about that? Right? We are so honored to have you as well. And let me tell you guys a little bit about Patrick, okay? In late 1999, he launched Overstock.com, which achieved its first profitable quarter in 2002 and its full year profitability in 2009. In 2016, Overstock.com had revenues of $1.8 billion with a B, $billion, and its 7th out of 8 straight years of profitability. Incredible, $1.8 billion. In 2001, he began World Stock Fair Trade, an Overstock.com division selling handcrafted products from artisans in developing nations. World Stock profits have been donated to fund philanthropic projects, including building 26 self-sustaining schools across Asia and Africa, educating thousands of students. He's also created Main Street Revolution Marketplace for small American entrepreneurs, a pet adoption service that has connected people with 75,000 pets in less than, get this, 2 years. 75,000 pets in 2 years. That is incredible. And Farmers Market, which now makes fresh, locally grown produce available to 45% of the U.S. population. Produce, Overstock, you guys need to talk. In 2010, Forbes magazine named Overstock.com the 9th best company to work for in the country. Pretty incredible. And he was the CEO, get this, with the highest employee approval rating, 92%. 92%. That is amazing. When was the last time you went to your office and you're like, hey, what do you guys think of the boss? It's almost unanimous. So keep doing great things. Anyway, in 2011, Ernst & Young gave Byrne its National Entrepreneur of the Year Award. In 2014, Overstock.com was one of the most trustworthy companies in America, as named by Forbes. Trustworthiness, another key word to take away from today's convention, folks. A classical liberal, he believes that our nation's success depends on education and capital markets. Since Milton Friedman's passing in 2006, he served as chairman of the Friedman Foundation for Educational Choice, now EdChoice, an organization leading the national push for school choice. Toward the goal of clean capital markets, in 2004 he began a vigorous citizen journalist campaign focusing on regulatory capture, hedge fund mischief, settlement system failures, systematic risk, and the possibility of economic warfare against the United States by organized crime and foreign governments. Sounds somewhat familiar, folks? His stance caught the attention of Wall Street analysts and reporters, becoming a point of high controversy until the crash of 2008, occasioned by many of the things which he had talked about and warned. His website, deepcapture.com, subsequently received much recognition, such as Weblog's award, Best Business Log in 2008, Business Pundit's Best Business Investigation Journalism 2009, Xmark's top site on the corruption in the USA in 2010. So this guy's committed, right? In 2012, his pro-freedom political orientation led him to challenge Overstock to become the first business with more than $1 million in revenue to accept Bitcoin as a payment method. Everybody heard of Bitcoin? Using the familiarity gained with the blockchain technology at the heart of the digital currencies, such as Bitcoin, he created Medici Ventures, a subsidy within Overstock.com devoted to advancing blockchain-based technology solutions. And in 2015, he used Medici's TO.com crypto securities trading platform to become the first person to purchase a digital bond entirely on the Bitcoin blockchain. Byrne made history again in 2016 in December when Overstock.com issued the first shares of public company ever traded on an alternative trading system, ATS, utilizing the blockchain's distributed ledger technology. He's received his bachelor's degree in philosophy and Asian studies from Dartmouth College, a master's in philosophy from Cambridge University as a Marshall Scholar, and a doctorate in philosophy right here at Stanford University. Having taught at the university level, he's a frequent guest lecturer discussing internet commerce, capital markets, Wall Street practices, education, leadership, and ethics. And he's here today to talk to us about liberalism and its disconnects. So please, Patrick, come on up and see what you got. Thank you so much for coming. Check out his hat, everybody. Got to tell me what it says.
Thank you very much.
What an honor. Oh, for those, my father always told me the eyes are the second things to go. So for those of you who don't know, this says make Bitcoin great again.
Yeah, right.
Your eyes were gone. Liberalism and its discontents. It's an honor, really a great honor to speak to the Libertarian Party. I actually was just back in New Hampshire and met the old man who once cornered me on a sidewalk. He was the husband of a professor at Dartmouth. And we got talking for 6 hours when he was a fellow from Texas. This is, gosh, 31 years ago, when I walked away from the conversation a libertarian. That was my conversion moment. I feel sorry for you because you've invited a philosopher to dinner. And when you do that, there's a high possibility you're going to get some philosophy after dinner. But it is a libertarian party. People should welcome a bit of philosophy. I'm reminded of, what is that joke? The guy sitting on an airplane next to a woman and she's got this enormous diamond on her finger. And he says, my gosh, madam, that is some diamond. I've never seen a diamond like that. She says, oi, this is the famous Clopfield diamond. The only one in the world, the Clopfield diamond. Of course, it comes with a Clopfield curse. He says, the Clopfield curse, what's that? She says, Mr. Clopfield. So, you invite a philosopher to dinner, you're going to get some philosophy. But if you can stay with me for about 10 minutes, because I do think, I think I'm evolving in this movement into the role of what's called a griot in West Africa, in the tribes in West Africa, There's a position of the old man who's the storyteller who remembers the whole tribe's oral history and teaches them about themselves. Because the kids kind of forget where they came from and what's the story of the tribe. Well, our tribe has a story that I think people have, I think in general we should know its story better. The tribe, our tribe, which is the best name for our tribe incidentally, is liberals. We're liberals. People started misusing the word 80 years ago in the United States. When you couldn't sell socialism to socialism anymore, they started calling it liberalism. It's very confusing. Just from my point of view, to tell this story, we just have to use liberal to be liberal, the story of liberalism. And I'm just going to hit a few highlights, and then I'm going to tell you what's gone wrong, because there's some big things that are going wrong here. Some, not weaknesses in the theories, but ways it's under attack that we're not prepared for. So I'm just going to hit some highlights. First highlight, I'm not one to quote the Bible much, but there's one thing that I used to teach, I used to be a teaching fellow at Stanford. I used to tell these stories. Our story begins with the book of Daniel. Because there's this, I won't tell you, go into the details, but there's this one moment in the book of Daniel where Daniel is interpreting something for the king of Babylon, Belshazzar. And he says, you've been judged in the balance and found wanting. That's a revolutionary thought, because until then, political authority and divine authority were united. And that's the first instance I know of where it was conceived of that there is some balance within which one can judge political authority, that there is something beyond political authority. We get to the Greeks, who gave us not only democracy, the first organized city-states that were running on democracy, but they had, say again?
I'm sorry. Please excuse me.
That's okay. There was also something else that's been forgotten called sortition. The Greeks Athens went through many different constitutions, all the Greek city-states did. And the one that ended up for Athens being the most stable, actually was part of they lasted 93 years under this constitution, was sortition. And that's when they chose their legislators randomly, like we do our juries. And there's some real logic to that, and I'll be getting back to that, but just sortition is an idea that maybe ought to come into vogue again. And then you get a little bit later, a few hundred years later, and in the Roman Republic, there was a Greek slave named Polybius. I mention this because he was well known by our founding fathers, who wrote about this theory, Jefferson in particular. And Polybius analyzed Roman history, and he knew Greek history. And his conclusion was that it's the nature of government, that it goes through this cycle. There's a cycle to history, and the cycle is out of some primitive situation, a king arises. And each form of government has its benevolent and malevolent versions. So the king arises, but that degenerates into a tyrant within a couple generations. And so then the people around the king, the nobility, take over. And you have an aristocracy, but that degenerates into oligarchy. And then the people take over. And that's democracy, but then that degenerates into mob rule. How do we stop this? And his answer to that was what poli-sci professors now call polycentricity. And that is the idea that you have decision-making, even political decision-making, fragmented and broken up. And that's what he attributed the success of the Roman Republic to, that they had found in all these different ways, over a few hundred years, ways of breaking up decision-making. Now let me skip ahead about 1,300 years. If you study political philosophy in any university in America, they start you with social contract theory. The idea that what people would agree to in some original position as the rules that they live by are the rules that we should live by now. The first one they'll teach in undergraduate courses is Thomas Hobbes, who says that, say again? Oh, I'm sorry. I keep on, the acoustics are so great, I keep on hearing people talk to me. Thomas Hobbes, who thought that life without government would be so solitary, nasty, brutish, and short, a life of war of all against all, that we would agree to form a Leviathan, to have to name one among us the king with unlimited power over us. John Locke says no, we'd have a different life would be different, and we would be able through Lockean reason to understand what other people's rights must be, how must we comport ourselves, so we could all go about our lives and such, and would evolve a much more minimalist state. And if you remember your college philosophy, they teach you that our founding fathers all read John Locke and were heavily impressed by this. There's a big chapter missing in that story, a few big chapters I want to draw to your attention. One is a social contract kind of situation actually happened. It actually happened historically, and this is always left out. I have all these great friends at Stanford philosophy department still, but I think of when I studied there and at Cambridge, and they always left this stuff out. It really did happen once. A bunch of Germans who didn't want to live under anyone's rule moved to these swamps on the northwest coast of Europe. And they all agreed that if we cooperate, we can drain these swamps and have this land, and we got to figure out the rules we're going to live by. This was the Netherlands. And the rules they came up with were very much a minimalist state. And the idea that, okay, we're going to appoint one of ourselves as the stadtholder, the mayor or something, the first among equals. Someone has to organize the work and organize things and such. But it's not some god, or it's not somebody we worship. It's a first among equals. It's just some plumber we hire to organize things. We don't owe any special, it was not divine or anything. And in this wonderful society that they created, starting in the 1300s, 1400s, a few ideas emerged. There was a Catholic theologian named Erasmus who wrote about political tolerance and tolerance for religious freedom, and how you could have a society, then had not even been conceived of, that you could have a society that worked, that had people with different religions, and they could actually all respect each other and get along. And then a great Jewish philosopher named Baruch Spinoza, who they used to, for 200 years, if you just said the philosopher in the West, it meant Baruch Spinoza. And he wrote something that's you can think of as sort of the beginning of the modern worldview of psychology, and that we each are a self, that we are not just instruments for the ends of some prince, that we each have our own psychology, and whatever our rank in society is, we share that. So we're each beings whose consent matters. And that was the fundamental insight. We're all agents whose consent matters. That comes from Spinoza. So in this wonderful environment of Rotterdam and Amsterdam and Holland and the Netherlands, these ideas evolved for a couple hundred years. And two great things happened. One, a group of Puritans, actually they weren't Puritans, they were Brownians. They were almost what we would call Quakers, I think, today. They left England and they sailed to Rotterdam, and they stayed there 20 years, and they learned this philosophy. And they didn't like the effect that Amsterdam was having on their children. And I can personally attest that I'm very pro-Amsterdam. And they left, and they sailed to America, landed in Plymouth Rock, known as the Pilgrims. And we teach our kids in school that these English Protestants came over with these ideas of religious tolerance, and all nonsense. They learned it over 20 years in Holland. And they brought these ideas from Holland here. They hadn't learned this in England. And then John Locke himself sat out the Glorious Revolution for 3 years, because it would have been hung. And he sat it out in Amsterdam. He lived there for 3 years in Amsterdam, and he learned all this in Amsterdam. And he went back to England after those 3 years, and wrote the Second Treatise of Government, which is the paper that all of our founding fathers read, and so forth. And that's really the story of liberalism. I'm going to jump into one other piece of it, and another part of Spain. Salamanca, 400 years ago, roughly around the same time I was just talking about Holland, something was going on at the University of Salamanca in Spain, and a group of Jesuits and Dominican priests formed a school called the Scholastics. and they revived the thinking of St. Thomas Aquinas a few hundred years earlier, who'd been very big in natural reason and natural law and natural rights. And these Spanish priests noticed some very interesting things. It was the golden age of Spain, and there were shiploads of silver and gold coming back from the New World. And they saw this tremendous inflation that actually crippled the Spanish economy for a few decades. And so they came up with what we would now call the quantity theory of money, that inflation just did, more money is more inflation. They came up with, until then, and really for several hundred years after, philosophers used to wonder, what is it that gave something value? And most answers were of some form of labor theory of value. And even Adam Smith got this wrong. Adam Smith believed in the labor theory of value, that there was some, all this speculation of what is it about working with something and how much work goes in it, it accumulates, how much value, all this kind of mysticism. And the Spanish said, no, the value of something is what somebody's willing to pay for it. It's just the subjective value of someone else. Now that's commonly attributed in economics classes to the 1880s, a Cambridge economist named Marshall. It's just false. The Spanish had it. The Spanish has the subjective theory of value. If value is really derived from what all of us as individuals think, then any attempt to set prices by law is a mistake. Because, and as they put it, as Marianus put it, that that there's so much that would be known in order to calculate what the correct price of everything should be, that even God himself in his infinite wisdom would be a task beyond him. Well, we now know that is the impossibility of socialist calculation. And point after the primacy of contract and property, the value of entrepreneurship, that an entrepreneur, someone who seizes within, or seizes an opportunity, that's what moves society forward. And these ideas hung out, they drifted out of Salamanca, Spain, through Italy to the eastern edge of the Spanish Empire. And we Americans forget this. But at one point, Europe was just a big ocean of Spain with an island in it called France, but it was basically Spain. And it drifted to the eastern edge of Spain, the eastern edge, the Österreich, or Austria. And these ideas went into hibernation for 250 years, and they came out 150 years ago in the form of Menger and what we now call the Austrian School of Economics. But these two what was going on in Amsterdam through the Pilgrims, and then John Locke, and then what was going on in Spain greatly influenced our founding fathers. In fact, Jefferson had Marianus was one of these great scholastics, his History of Spain. Jefferson read and sent a copy to all the other founding fathers. He thought there was so much. So that's the story of liberalism. To me, it all comes together in the U.S. Constitution. You can go through section by section of the U.S. Constitution and trace back to the ideas that I've just walked through. So, for example, polycentricity shows up not just in the separation of powers within the federal government, but the split between the federal government and the state and the local. As an entrepreneur, I find this so interesting and so important, because my life is all about innovation. It's coming in every day. A friend of mine calls it imagination land. I get to just sort of try to think of ideas. That innovation, I think that intellectuals generally underestimate how important that things aren't just given. Everything is built, and innovation drives everything going on in business. Well, in politics, you can have innovation via polycentricity. You want political problems to be, this was one of the insights, that you want political problems to have 13 different laboratories trying to solve them, or 50 different laboratories trying to solve them, and then the best solutions will get emulated by others and copied, and you'll get policy innovation. That, to me, is one of the great advantages of the US Constitution, that it provided for that possibility. And really, you can go line by line through Article 1, Section 8, and the powers delegated, and you can trace them all back to these histories I've been talking about. And of course, religious tolerance and political tolerance, and the First Amendment, and so on and so forth. So that's the story of liberalism. And to me, liberalism is the correct word. I can't even, Stanford philosophy is all about before you can solve any philosophical problem, you got to get your language right. And to me, liberal is the correct. I hate the way Americans misuse it these days to mean authoritarian. Right. So where went wrong? I've talked about it. It went wrong philosophically in the work of a group of philosophers. I'm not going to go into great deep. Jean-Jacques Rousseau being the first, great enemy of mankind. I noticed Ayn Rand. Anyone who reads Ayn Rand for some of those, she must have written about Rousseau. Rousseau and everyone who comes after him, Kant, Hegel, Nietzsche, Lenin, Hitler, it's all the same philosophical mistake, in that they try to define freedom as something other than the individual's pursuit of life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, as Locke had it, and that the true freedom, it's like these are control freaks, and they can't stand the concept of people being free, the thought of it. And so they invariably come up with some way of saying, yes, okay, freedom is good, but freedom isn't that silly English thing that is just doing what you want to do with your life. As Nietzsche said, only an Englishman cares about happiness. That it's really being subordinate. It's being submitting to some grander mission. The mission of Das Volk, or the mission of history. It's, if you're Kant, or the mission of history, the progress of history for Hegel. For Marx, it's the progress, this historical story of the working class and so on. It doesn't really matter the details, but in each case, what they say is freedom is not what you think it is, just that silly English Lockean concept of a guy pursuing what he wants with his life, but it's rather submitting to some proper mission and process. And that's what these continental philosophers have done over and over, and so corrupted history with. That's obvious. I want to talk about a different way. It has been that liberalism has been under attack, and we may have really lost it. Bad jurisprudence, and the key. Here's a story. Not if there's anyone who knows this in America, it's like libertarians who even know this story. There was once an uber socialist, a very hardcore socialist. He was he was the foremost proponent of the work of George Sorel, who was a particular type of socialist, hard left socialist called a syndicalist. And the only syndicalist I know of today is Noam Chomsky. Is a syndicalist. And it's the idea that, so it's of course the state should run things, but it isn't through a Soviet central planning system, it's not through this or that, it's not Fabian socialism. It's that everyone will belong by profession to a syndicate or a guild or a union, and then the unions in some sort of the syndicates in some great, the role of government is to arbitrate the disputes among these syndicates. Incidentally, ancient Rome operated this way. If you were a worker, if you were a maid, you didn't negotiate your pay with the woman who employed you. You were a member of the maid guild, or you unloaded the grain off and you were a member of that guild. And then the guilds among them negotiated what all the correct pay was. By the way, the correct guild in ancient Rome turned out to be unloading the grain. It's OPEC, energy. It's always, you want to be the guy who's got your finger on the energy source of society. So anyway, in the early 1900s, there was this hardcore Italian socialist, considered very extreme, written about favorably by Lenin and so forth. World War I happened, and he went and fought in it, and came back believing the same stuff, still considered a man of the hard left, but had a new edition. And he said that it's only sort of glorifying the virtues of war, and only we who have fought in this war and been bloodied really should speak for the new Italy and such. But his fundamental conception of how to organize everything was exactly the same. He just had this new nationalist strain. His name was Benito Mussolini. And Mussolini was very well regarded in the 20s and the first half of the 30s in the United States. Well, in the West. He was the dictator who made the trains run on time. That's where that expression came from. Very well regarded. In fact, there's a Cole Porter song that some of the old timers might remember. You know, you're the tops, you're the great Houdini, you're the tops, you're my Mussolini. And Mussolini was this very popular figure until 1935 when he invaded Ethiopia. He was so popular, in fact, American intellectuals were smitten with him. A great many went over and studied what was going on in Italy, including Hugh Johnson, General Hugh Johnson. And they spoke openly of fascism. Fascism didn't have the connotations it does now, and people identified themselves as fascists and talked about fascism approvingly. Columbia University had a kind of sad role in this, in studying Italy and taking these ideas and bringing them to America. They became Franklin Roosevelt's brain trust. Hugh Johnson became the first head of the NRA, not your NRA, not this NRA, but the National Recovery Act, which had a blue eagle. And you can go look up the symbol of the blue eagle, and you can see this fascism was coming to the United States. Roosevelt very much, he adopted this philosophy of organizing society. The economist from Columbia, name like Rexford Tugwell III or something, was this economist who set up the AI. But their basic vision of how to organize society came straight from Mussolini. In fact, Mussolini was asked in 1936, what's fascism? It's what you call the New Deal. It was very consciously modeled on Mussolini's way of organizing Italy. Now, this was all flagrantly unconstitutional, which is why Roosevelt's programs just kept getting shut down by the Supreme Court. And there were all these decisions from 33 to 36 against Roosevelt. Roosevelt came out in the fall of 1936 and started saying, you know, those justices, they're old and the workload's getting to them. I'm going to appoint 6 new ones. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says that there's 9 judges on the Supreme Court. It started off with 5, actually. Had 5 until about 78 for the first 60 or 70 years of the Supreme Court. He said, I'm going to take it to 15, and it was called Roosevelt's court packing scheme. And the Supreme Court came back for the spring term of 1937 and surrendered. And they surrendered on everything. It was called the switch in time that saved 9. And they surrendered. And that's actually how it happened. That's the torpedo that punched the hole in the waterline, and they let all these flagrant unconstitutional things go through. And I'll just walk you through one example, but it's such a seminal case, Wickard v. Filburn. And it's such an important case to know about. In Ohio, there was a farmer, Roscoe Filburn, who was growing wheat on his own land and making food with it and serving, the straw or something to his cattle. And the federal government brought action because Roosevelt had this new agricultural policy that set prices, and he wanted to have a price support system and such. 30% of food and land was left fallow. And this made it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, well, so the question is, of course, where in the Constitution is the federal government empowered? And this is the correct way that judges were supposed to ask the question. Where is the authority, where has the federal government been empowered to take such actions? That's the correct question to be asked, not, where does it show that I have a right against them taking action, but where are they so empowered? And they found in the Commerce Clause that the government, because Congress, the Constitution says Congress has the power to regulate interstate commerce, and Roosevelt had set up a scheme to have a national price system for food products, and because this farmer by growing wheat on his farm and eating it himself. That was wheat that he would have otherwise had to go into the marketplace and buy, so at the margin, he was affecting the national price of wheat, and under that authority, the Supreme Court say that yes, the federal government does have the right to regulate that. Well, on such casuistic reasoning was that's what punched a hole in the Constitution. That's when it went down. There's a few other cases at around the same time. Richard Epstein, a great scholar that has written a book about it called How Progressives Rewrote the Constitution. But that was a seminal case, and that's what opened up, that's what exposed us to a massive federal government that does all kinds of things that the Constitution says it shouldn't. By the way, that case reminds me, it's on my mind being in California, of one that came along 12 years ago, Gonzalez v. Reich. It's the marijuana case. And a woman here with leukemia, dying of leukemia, had a plant in her backyard under the Compassionate Use Act that California had passed. She grew pot, was smoking it, and the federal government, Michael Gonzalez, the Attorney General, brought action against her. She actually died, but in the process, but it made its way to the Supreme Court. And shockingly, the Supreme Court, 7 justices, found that yes, they supported that the federal government did have that right on the same kind of reasoning that had existed in Wickard v. Filbert. Senator O'Connor had a dissent from part of it, but the real guy, the only person, in my view, on the Supreme Court, last I really followed the Supreme Court was 10 years ago. At that point, the only guy on the Supreme Court who knew what the Constitution meant was Clarence Thomas. And he wrote a beautiful dissent in Gonzalez v. Reich that says that the federal government can regulate this, it can regulate spelling bees, it can regulate church soda, it can regulate, let's stop pretending we have a Constitution. So anyway, those are that's the story of liberalism and where it has been marred. It's been marred from bad continental philosophy, from Rousseau through Kant and Hegel, Marx, etc. But at the end of the day, we got gangstered. I mean, at the end of the day, this Constitution worked and it deflected this kind of stuff, and it took somebody basically being a gangster. And in my mind, when the Generalissimo says, you think you've got 9 justices, I'll give you 15 justices, and that's the moment where it got gangstered. And that's where they punched the hole in the Constitution. There's a little bit of hope on the horizon. We are at least in a world where people, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even talk about getting these cases reversed would have sounded nuts to people. And now is possible. These questions are starting to be touched on again. But we're up against 2 institutional biases, and I'll close on this. May I have a glass of water, please? Thank you. We're up against two things. We have developed a financial class that is parasitic on that basically the central bank. Everything that central banks are feared to do has happened in this country. It's been 104 years. You know, how the central bank works is interesting. There's actually a checking account with nothing in it, but by law, nothing can bounce. And the Federal Reserve buys U.S. government bonds and pays for it out of this checking account. So it buys with fake money, and then when the bond matures, we pay back with real money. Now, I don't think that's a good institutional design anyway. but it's because it reminds me of, there's a London school, well, it's the fatal conceit. It's Hayek, the fatal conceit. The thought that you know, intellectuals love to see the economy as this big engine, and they're the workmen with screwdrivers, and they're going to adjust the carburetor, and they're going to tinker with this, and I'm going to really tune in. This is how these guys think, and they're nuts, they're silly. So part of it is that conceit, but it's created a class of beneficiaries, and those beneficiaries don't want to give up what the central bank does for them. The other thing we're up against, though, is the school system. And the school system, I sometimes feel like we're playing a game, one of those video games where you can slaughter, you know, hundreds of zombies or whatever, and they just keep coming. They just keep coming. Well, no matter how much we win, and no matter who we convince, the side that's anti-freedom has an edge, because they're indoctrinating 50 million kids. And as Milton used to say, a socialist school system is going to teach socialist values, and a free market school system will teach free market values. I've actually finally, I think, found a way I can get across. On the schools, I've actually getting across to teachers now this way. I finally found the way that you can get them to see the light. There's $850 billion being spent in this country, K through 12. It's 50 million kids. There's about 19,000 per kid. And that's all you can show very easily in the federal state of education that comes out every year. It's about 19,000 per kid. There's about 26 children, according to the NEA, 26 children per class. That means that the typical class in America is getting, you do the math, that's just under $500,000 of funding. Now, last I checked, that's what classrooms are being given per classroom. Last I checked, teachers are not getting paid $500,000. They're getting paid about $55,000. And with benefits and stuff, it's about 70, 75. And you can say, well, what does it cost to have a room and heat it and electricity and such? Maybe there's 25,000. So you can kind of see where $100,000 of the money goes. Where's the rest of the $500,000 go? Yeah. Well, that's what I finally learned is the way to get it across to teachers. What's wrong and what's wrong with the system? The problem isn't lack of money. The problem is there's that $400,000 that's going to pay for who knows what. But people forget that the education system has all kinds of layers that you never see. You know, you talk about this stuff, they trot out the local teacher, oh, Vern hates your teachers, and I don't hate the teachers. But behind the teachers that you know, there's district, county, state, and federal layers of bureaucracy. And some states, there's no known, like in South Carolina, there were 400 people when I got involved in this stuff. There were 400 people with unlimited gas cards and big esplanades, and no one could in the State Department of Education, and no known function. No function. I think they're basically Democratic Party operatives, but that's what they do. So we're up against these two institutes. So I've walked through our story, our tribal story of liberalism, things that have gone wrong with it, the philosophy. I think we would have been okay on the philosophy. The Supreme Court was protecting us until the 1930s, and then this bad philosophy showed up, and they stopped. They got gangstered. They stopped fighting it. It's taken over, and we have this perpetual headwind, both because the moneyed interests have become addicted to the central bank mechanism, and because we have 50 million young citizens who get schooled in these bad ideas continuously by an institution that has an incentive to teach people that the right way to organize society is the current way. So that's where we are. I was asked to share my thoughts on liberalism and where we are. And I'll stop there and love to take questions for 10 or 15 minutes.
I had a
a question. I'll kick it off.
Go ahead, sir.
So, I'll try not to get into my personal story, but TLDR, we took our child out of public school and put them in private school because we were told that our teacher is on leave and we have to get a substitute that's never taught before for his entire 3rd grade class session. So we're like, well, we might as well pay for this. And when we did this, a lot of our, and I'll use air quotes here, liberal friends said, how dare you take your child out of the public school system and give them a private education? That's not fair to everybody that stayed behind. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I think that you should answer such people. I was in such a conversation where something like that was said, and I pointed out that, you know, that's good. Your child probably, if it's unfair to your child, there's probably a lot of things that would make your child better off, madam. We can give your child a shovel, and your child can dig holes when he wants, and things like that. And oh, wait a second. There's a difference between my child and a shovel. And that is, your child can use a shovel to make his life better off, but my child has his own ends in life and isn't to be used like a shovel by other children. And so that's really the answer. It's so, well, I've been in these conversations where people say things like this, and you realize it's one of those moments you kind of want to back away slowly and make sure there aren't any sharp objects around. Like, this person, what is their view of the world? That they get to, it's such a strange, sometimes I feel like that, what was that movie, the old Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where Donald Sutherland is realizing one by one everyone around him has been taken over. Yes, but it's really funny that even things like that can be said in our society and people not understand that what it means is that in their mind, your child is a shovel that they should be able to use to make their life better. Sure?
You know, that $19,000 a year also includes 2 meals a day and sometimes 3. That we're also morphing into not only, you know, propagandizing our kids, but we're also feeding them. So many, my daughter is a nutritional director in a California school district with a $23 million a year budget. You know, and now this is, so what I'm looking forward to is in the future, maybe we'll have free-range kids. You know, we're creating one-size-fits-all for everything. And what you said earlier on to the 50 different laboratories, we got to move back to thousands of different laboratories and get rid of the state's influence on everything and go to local on almost everything.
Well, I'd be happy if in my life we can get from the federal to the state. We'll let you young fellows take it to the next level. But you know, even things like, yeah, the truth is I don't know how to fix the medical system, and no one here does. No one knows how to fix it. It seems so powerful, the idea that let's have 50 different states trying to figure out how to fix it. And then, you know, we'll see what works and what doesn't. Better ideas will evolve and such. That is such a powerful advantage that our republic started with and had until about 70 years ago. Now, as the federal government does this very passes laws that homogenize the solution to these social problems, it seems like we're giving up the real strength of our model. We lose policy innovation.
But Scalia dying actually killed it on Verdugo versus LAUSD or whatever, because we're on the verge of changing everything in California with those powerful Republicans, you know, those speeches.
And then he died.
And then we lost. It was coming before that, so it's going to take 2 years to get back to where we were.
Sisyphus. Sir.
So I have a philosophical question for you, and it's based on the story that was told just before. Does the word fair have any place in the liberal lexicon?
I think there's so much mush that gets spouted. Fair, social justice. I think that social justice has no meaning whatsoever as a phrase. I know what legal justice means, I know what rectificatory justice is, and all kinds of justices. But to believe that beyond these kinds of first the whole, again, I'm betraying my Stanford philosophy background, which is all analytic philosophy and the belief that to analyze a problem is all about getting very clear about the language. If a person were in a space capsule and shot beyond Pluto and were out of radio range and had no promises that they had made that they had not yet fulfilled, and they're just traveling across interstellar space, could anything they do be considered unjust? And I think the answer is no. And that's because justice is already a social relationship. It doesn't, so to say social justice itself is a little confusing. It's like saying social communication. Well, communication is social. It doesn't, it's just a mush word, a mush phrase that confuses people. And then the idea that, to me, I got so sick of dealing with the left, frankly, in academia. A lot of great friends. But, you have conversations and you think you're getting somewhere, and then they basically say, well, because social justice. Because social justice, because I don't find any argument, it's just a phrase. And it replaces thinking, I think the phrase actually means nothing. And, there's all kinds of ideals I care about. I don't want there to be discrimination, I don't want there to be poverty, and we can address all those things. But to say that beyond the rules that govern you and me and the two of you and so on and so forth, there's some overarching other kind of justice. No, there's just the justice that governs us as individuals. It seems like a big fallacy of composition for them to say otherwise. Sorry.
I want to add a comment about social justice, and also relates back to something Chris was saying earlier about why people choose compulsion over persuasion. What I see, and the thing that drives some people into that compulsion territory, is when they feel that they have been wronged in the past, and they feel that they have some need or that it is somehow just to right a previous wrong by imposing by force what they think should have been done before. That basically, in order to prevent an injustice from happening again, that they feel it's necessary to use force to do it. And that's what I believe that social justice means is, well, we think this thing that happened before in slavery, in the economy in the 1930s, in ancient Egypt, was wrong, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen again, so we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again by doing a different wrong now and doing an injustice on others. What do you think about that? Does that address?
I think that you've got it in general, and that's accompanied or it's informed by this very mechanical sense that they typically hold of how we can achieve this outcome or that outcome. I want this outcome so we can set the dials this way to generate that outcome. They often don't understand how the problems that they're looking at actually were created by previous government action. And just don't seem to be really informed by a sense of how things actually work. I'm sure many of us are fans of Thomas Sowell here. A great one. And Sowell, yeah.
He's the man.
He's the man. He's my first, second, and third choice for president.
He is my first, second.
And he writes about how black Americans, how they were doing vis-a-vis white Americans since the Civil War, and how much progress had been made. In fact, by 1930, black Americans had a higher labor force participation rate, lower unemployment and such. And then the federal government, under lobbying by whites who didn't want to have the competition from black workers, first got, there was this, and there are congressmen with these in the 1920s and 30s with quotes about how we have to protect white workers from the competition from black workers from the South who were coming into cities and such. And so they passed a law, a minimum wage law, whose whole point was to make it's too tempting for a business person to hire somebody cheaper if they can. And so they set the minimum wage as a way of punishing black workers. So there'd be less of an incentive to hire a black worker. And the whole origin of the minimum wage law is all in oppressing black people. In Canada, it was Chinese people. And it didn't really have any bite until the late 40s. And after World War II, there was a big dose of inflation. And for the first time, there was a movement, okay, now we have to raise the minimum wage so it has real bite. Until then, black and white unemployment was the same. They cranked up the minimum wage in 1949, and by 1950, black unemployment was double white unemployment, and where it has remained ever since. If you look at the graphs, it's always like this, and it's always exactly 2x white, and that's an expression of racism. And they have made it, as Sowell says, prejudice is free, but discrimination is expensive. You know, if in a market, there's actually a big disincentive to discriminate. And you can be prejudiced, but if you don't want to act on it. But what the minimum wage does is it makes it costless to discriminate. So here's this huge social problem that's been created. It's not a legacy of slavery. It's a legacy of a federal action that was taken. And I think that there's a lot of that in talk of social justice, that they want to remedy problems and they don't understand how the problems themselves were effects caused by some previous government action. Sure. Yes, are you?
So I heard,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're standing.
So I heard that you had a degree in East Asian Studies when you were being introduced, and this is kind of an unusual question, but I wonder if you're familiar at all with any Eastern school of thought or philosophy that has any sort of parallel to liberalism or liberty in the West, or is it sort of an inherently Western concept?
Well, there's one I know of, and that is the Tao. The Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. There's all this stuff in there. That, the story behind the Tao is that the old one, it was the librarian in the kingdom. I happen to speak Chinese, and he was the librarian in the kingdom of Zhou. And when he was an old man, he went to leave and become a hermit, which was sort of the traditional thing for old Chinese scholars to do. And at the frontier, the border guard said to him, "You're too valuable to let you go. You must write me down what you know." So the old man sat under a tree and in an afternoon wrote out the important things to know about life. And that's the Tao Te Ching. And there is certainly a lot in there. That's there's the lines about the best ruler is the one not known to exist by the ones below, and things like that. So it sounded to me like an old man who had seen a lot of different schemes fail in his life. But primarily it's a Western concept, and it grew out of this history I described. Who should I?
That guy right there with the pen.
Pen.
So this is a follow-up to that. I'm wondering about other civilizations that have also embraced liberty. My question has to do with, for example, when the founding fathers adopted the Constitution, some people credit the Iroquois Nation, their Constitution. Apparently the founding fathers borrowed quite a bit from them. I'm wondering if you have done any studying whatsoever on what the various Indian tribes might have believed in when it comes to liberalism.
I have read that. I've heard it that, and specifically the Iroquois Federation. I think there were 7 nations or 7 tribes within it, and that there were things in how they made their decisions that impressed Washington and our founding fathers. They also had so I've read that, but I don't know any details of it. Sir?
2 questions. One philosophical, one practical. Practical question: do you see any reason for optimism with appointments like Gorsuch and perhaps a couple more to the Supreme Court, plus another 100 or so to the appellate and district court bench? That's the practical question. The philosophical question is: does Stoicism have any provide any antecedents to Western thought?
2 great questions. I actually see a lot of hope in guys like Gorsuch. We'll only know in a little while. After then, it's easy to confuse. The media would have you think that there's 2 camps on the Supreme Court: the originalists and the judicial activists. Guys like Epstein would point out that there's really been 3, and there's a lot of folks that the Republicans thought would be good, who were not good. And because if they come from government, what they should be doing is, the whole question of activism is misplaced. What they should be doing is, if Congress passes a law that's unconstitutional, the Supreme Court should be striking it down. But there has been a history of Republican jurists who are too deferential to an overreaching Congress. And so we can't always count on Republican appointments to defend the Constitution. So there's really been three camps. And it's funny though, on Gonzalez v. Reich, the only people, O'Connor dissented, Scalia dissented from one piece, and then it was Thomas who wrote the big dissent. But so you can't always trust the Republicans, like Rehnquist, for example, that they're too deferential to government and to Congress, and if they believe, and what's that test that if
Chevron.
Sorry?
Chevron.
I know the Chevron case, but I'm thinking of it, it's actually the test, it again comes back from the 30s or 40s, which is something like if Congress passed this, it's not up to us, the jurists, to know if Congress was in the right mind or not. If they passed this law and they had some reasonable expectation to believe that it was to achieve this effect, we shouldn't be questioning it. And under, pardon me?
That was fairly recent.
Kelo.
Kelo, yeah. I mean,
Who are we to say that tax increases aren't a public purpose?
Yeah.
Right.
Who are we, the big check on the?
I happen to have been with Rose and Milton in New York the day Kelo came out. I remember him thinking it was really kind of like a big blow to them. That was a ridiculous case that it got decided that way. And in fact, Sandra Day O'Connor wrote a great dissent on that. She at least got how the world worked. She said there's gonna and anybody who's been in real estate knows, it's all about bribery. It's all about, if you've got the local councilmen who get to decide if they take that land away from some people and they turn it over to Pfizer to create a new headquarters, of course there's payola. It's the way the world works. So, and anyway, but this bigger question, there's been, Epstein was arguing 10 or 15 years ago that a lot of the people, look at John Roberts actually, look at on Obamacare, that there's too much deference paid. So the whole thing of judicial activism versus not being active isn't a good distinction. That we should understand that there's a third camp on the court, really represented by Clarence Thomas, and maybe some others now who understand the right way to analyze the cases is where in the Constitution is the Congress empowered to do these things, and if it's not empowered, then it shouldn't be making law. Ma'am.
First, I want to apologize because I was the one that was muttering. I was kind of interacting with you, and I apologize for that because I love what you were saying.
Okay.
But I want to come back to the notion of the difference between persuasion and coercion. And you were talking about Hobbes and Locke. I go back to Aristotle and Plato, the allegory of the cave. So if you have a notion of man, that he's evil and bad and stupid and all of those kind of pejorative words, then obviously you have to have philosopher kings who control him, which was the allegory of the cave and certainly Hobbes' position. If you believe, on the other hand, that man is neutral or innately good, then of course we have persuasion. So for me, it's going back to the very fundamental view of man, of original sin, not original sin would be another way of looking at it. And I think to the extent to which we disrespect humanity is the extent to which we feel as though we have the right to put restrictions on and rules on. And I'd like your thoughts.
Well, I certainly do find, have you ever seen haters in the American political discourse, like the Antifa movement now? To your point, Thomas Sowell has this great analysis in Conflict of Visions, addressing just that point, but he would have a different spin on it. He would say that it is, at one end, there are the people who see mankind is inherently good. And civilization has corrupted us. Rousseau, the noble savage. Man is born free but in chains everywhere. And that view. And if you have that view, then the problems of society are problems created by, we just don't care enough, we haven't built the institutions correctly, something like that. But there is this other view of mankind, a much more sinister, or what he would call a constrained vision, that is like Joseph Conrad in Heart of Darkness, where Mr. Kurtz goes to the heart of the dark continent, and when he sees stripped of all constraints, he sees to the heart of mankind, and all he can report is the horror, the horror. And if you have that view of mankind, then what you want are institutions that keep them in check. You don't want, it doesn't make sense to say, what is it that causes war? You say, well, given that we are aggressive and greedy, and that given that mankind has historically been this way, what is it that has checked war? And what is it? So I'm not sure I would agree with your belief that, and to me, if you're skeptical about human nature, then it makes you more devoted to the idea that we want these clean, simple, regular institutions and rule of law.
That's what I said. We like to control. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, so I'm going to ask another question. It's a two-parter, too, so I'm going to throw 3 full ones in there for myself. The first one is you published or you sponsored a documentary that came out late in the campaign cycle last year. I wanted your personal thoughts on what you were hoping to accomplish there, and did you accomplish it? And second question, looking forward to 2020, do you have any, like a wish list or sorts, or I noticed that our Libertarian Party thinks if we paid enough bones, we should be selected as a Libertarian, and that disenfranchised a lot of people that saw Gary Johnson kind of come in. They're like, but I've been here, and I should be the one you guys picked, but then this guy comes along. So I don't know what those two things. So first your documentary, and then 2020. Okay,
so I do philosophy. I don't do politics too well anyway. I've never backed a winner that I can think of.
Not yet.
I was hoping, well, what I'd really done was I funded some cameramen to do interviews for a couple of years. I was really focusing on how corrupt the discourse was. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it all. Then Gary came along and looked like he had a shot. So I turned it over to some people who wanted to make a movie about Gary. So that's how I thought Gary did have a shot. You know, what I was looking for was the possibility of him to win one state. You know, if the Libertarians are ever going to win, I think the way it happens is, unless there's a complete meltdown of the Keynesian magic money tree world that we've been living in for 100 years. And I do think that meltdown is coming. But until that happens, the only way we would win would be something like where the Libertarian won a state or two, and neither, say, Trump or Hillary had gotten enough to 270, and then the top 3 people would go to the House, and the House, the theory would be that you'd end up with somebody like Gary emerging. So it was partly for those reasons that I saw some glimmer of hope that could happen, and I was trying to give him a boost. I think he didn't get treated very fairly I think the whole Aleppo thing. You ought to go back and look at that interview. It's kind of, they were in the middle of asking him about welfare or something, and then the guy even dropped his voice and said something about Aleppo, and he said Aleppo, and didn't, they deliberately, however, I think Gary didn't cover himself with glory on that either. I think if the Libertarians have a chance of winning, it'll be in that kind of a situation. 2020, boy, I can't imagine if Trump runs again. It's going to be really a very interesting field, because the Democrats are going to go way left if Trump runs again, and you're going to have you're gonna have an even bigger opportunity than we just had. There'll be an 8-lane interstate down the middle. You're gonna have Donald Trump and somebody hard left. And you'd think, but boy, the system is so rigged against the third party. Sir?
I was just gonna add, there is one other way that we become, the Libertarian Party becomes the party of choice in the United States. And that's the same way that the Republicans became the second party back in the 1850s. In 1854, there were no Republicans in federal government. None. It was a new party, the Whigs were in power, but they had an unpopular opinion as it related to how African Americans were being treated and slavery was being handled. And over the course of the next 4 years, half of the existing members of Congress just changed parties. They got sick of the old way of doing things. They were unhappy with the leadership of the Whig Party, changed to Republicans, and the other half who stuck with the Whigs got voted out. So it was one person at a time, one battle at a time, one congressman at a time, getting people to move over from their old way of thinking to a new way of thinking. I think that's how we can win it now.
From your lips to God's ear. Sir.
How's the Bitcoin adoption going for Overstock, and are there any other cryptocurrencies that you're considering, or which ones would be the leading contenders if you were to accept another type?
Well, Bitcoin, the other contender would be Ethereum, is the other serious, and it's great, different in some respects. But to me, my allegiance to Bitcoin or Ethereum isn't anything to do with the value, and I'm predicting that it's going to go to something or other. It's a key moment for our movement, for liberalism. And because I think we have a trump card. I think for 6,000 years we've been fighting a battle that we actually could win right now. And that is because for 6,000 years we have, whenever we wanted to engage in consensual exchange, we generally have to rely on a third party. You can't trust me, I want to trade you my camel for that gold coin. I don't know if the gold coin, if you debased it or not. So we have a third party, a mint, which is basically he who has the monopoly on violence in an area, says, okay, I'm going to print up gold coins with my face on it, and whoever debases it gets killed. And it's just a way of monetizing monopoly on violence. It's a business model. There are other business models that have the same, it's really about enabling two third parties to have consensual exchange. Land titling. You can't trust my signature on a piece of paper that I own this piece of land, so we all agree there's some office and they keep track of it. I've been out here in a stealth company working in blockchain, and they have 160 functions that hold civilization together listed on a wall that they think can be disrupted by this technology. A lot of those things are private, many of them are government. All kinds of functions of government can be disrupted by the blockchain. So just so you get the vernacular, Bitcoin, the real invention is this thing called the blockchain. Think of it like a ledger. Like your granddad ran a hardware store out of a ledger, but this is infinitely thick. It can be read by the whole world. It's cryptographically protected. It's the truth. It's an immutable version of the truth. That's the blockchain. You can apply it to money and you get Bitcoin. You can apply it. We're applying blockchain to Wall Street, applying blockchain to central banking. We're doing these other things with blockchain. But the point is, all these, for 6,000 years, we humans have created these central institutions that facilitate us doing consensual exchange. It's now possible to do completely trustworthy value exchange through blockchain, and you don't need those institutions. And so what the internet did to publishing, I think you're going to see blockchain do to 160 functions across civilization over the next decade or two. I think it's going to be a bigger deal than the internet itself. So that actually may be the ultimate trump card for us. If we take, what really happens is we form these central institutions and they get captured and power gets stripped away from us. Well, we may be able to eliminate the need for all kinds of them. And that's actually happening much quicker. If you look up my name in Wired, you'll see that I'm known as the Looks just like I live up in Alta, Utah. It looks just like that. I'm known as the messiah of Bitcoin, and that's because I think that Bitcoin, and not Bitcoin itself, but the blockchain, is going to have these very transformative effects on really the glue that holds our world together. I think I'll take one more question and stop, sir.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that. Blockchain technology, do you think that can be a way to prevent the use of naked short selling in the marketplace? I recall that you had a real problem with that philosophically, and you thought it was quote fraud.
Yeah, it's all, it can. It's all, what we have built is a version of Wall Street. The settlement system of Wall Street can be, believe it or not, the settlement system of Wall Street. You think, who here owns any stock in a publicly traded company? All of you with your hands up are incorrect. Believe it or not, you don't own, all the stock in America is legally owned by a company no one's ever heard of. It's called CD and Company, C-E-D-E. There's a really crazy, I know it just gets too nuts to talk about this. The plumbing of Wall Street works much differently than you think it works. It came about in the 1970s. Up until then, Wall Street worked by, there were guys bicycling around on Wall Street with burlap sacks filled with stock certificates. And when your broker sold some of your shares to another broker, what was actually happening was 2 or 3 days later, a guy with a burlap sack of stock was going between brokers, and there were shares and clipping corners and all this kind of stuff. In the 1960s, the volume on Wall Street quadrupled, and the guys on the bicycles couldn't keep up. And it all bottlenecked. And it became, real old timers might even know, that in 1970-71, there was something called the Great Wall Street Paperwork Crisis, where they actually shut down Wall Street. It was only open 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. That was to give a chance to for all the paperwork to catch up. And the SEC had a big industry meeting, and there were 2 solutions proposed. One was an electronic peer-to-peer settlement system, which is what the industry wanted, and that's the origin of NASDAQ. NASDAQ was formed by all these brokers around America getting together and saying, let's lobby for that solution. But the SEC pushed down the throat of the industry a different solution called Central Security Depository, called a mobilization, something that actually had only been done oddly enough, in Vienna in the 1860s. And they adopted this model. And they said there's got to be one corporation that owns everything, all the stock, and then it's going to issue what are essentially claim checks against that stock. And all that's trading around in the system is claim check. And then there are levels. It's fractional reserve banking without a reserve requirement. And I started getting into this stuff 20 years ago. And anyway, we're creating a version of Wall Street settlement that exists on the blockchain, where imagine a version of Wall Street where all kinds of mischief that you've grown up hearing about happening on Wall Street actually becomes impossible, where you can't even have settlement. There's all kinds of things that can't even be done in a blockchain-based capital market. They'd have to come up with a new name for Wall Street, a version of Wall Street that no one can cheat. And anyway, we've been building that, and you'd be surprised that actually the SEC, who was kind of 14 years ago, I started writing about regulatory capture. And if you go back 14 years ago, that was an obscure phrase. It was never in the popular press, and I was pounding on this concept of regulatory capture and deep capture. So I'm not the SEC and I are not friends. The federal government and I are not very friendly. I've been under as soon as I started doing this stuff about Wall Street, I was actually threatened. I was told you're going to become the object of federal investigations if you keep this up. And I said, come on, this isn't Paraguay, this doesn't happen here just because I'm criticizing. I came under 6 federal investigations in the last decade. None of them went anywhere. They gave me letters that say we found nothing. But I came under 6 different federal investigations. Anyway, so I think that what blockchain can do that to stock, I think it can do it to, I think that we'll maybe even find someday we don't need central banking. So, what an honor it has been to speak with you. Thank you so much.
so much for that. That was really, really enlightening. And I just wanted to say that I know that Patrick had a chance to answer quite a lot of questions here, and I wanted to invite Chris actually to come back up. I know we're doing a lot here. We're getting a lot of questions answered, but do you have a second? Do you want to come up?
It's way too late. I'm happy to over here.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to give you the same opportunity, so courtesy. So that being said, everybody, again, I just wanted to thank you for being here, for taking the time, to answering great questions from the audience, and also everybody here that is asking those questions. Finally, the big boss here showed me the tickets here, and I gave everybody a challenge, and I wanted to see if everybody can honor that challenge as best they can to make this the first state libertarian conference where we have 100% of participation financially to support the cause here. We have more candidates coming down the road, especially with thought leaders like these gentlemen that just spoke, and anything that you can do is going to really go a long way. So on behalf of everybody here tonight, we've got a great show coming tomorrow. I think I'll bring Robert back up to give us a rundown of tomorrow, or Ted, do you want to come up and just give us a rundown of tomorrow's schedule? So everybody have a great time tonight. Thank you again very, very much. And please, let's see if we can get that 100% tonight. It's going to be a really great something that we can share with everybody, not only here in California, but across the country. Thank you.
Okay, well, Baron, thanks so much for the emceeing, and thanks so much to our speakers, Chris and Patrick. Excellent presentation. I think everybody is riveted on that, because I don't think we lost too many people during that those presentations. Anyway, tomorrow we'll start out at 9 a.m. with our, let's start with tonight. Boomer's reminding me of the hospitality suite in room 1669 by the Alive Pretty Happy group, and they usually have a pretty wild hospitality suite. I was describing at lunch how back in the early 80s the Radical Caucus used to have even wilder hospitality suites, but now we have these great hospitality suites from Alive Pretty Happy. Then tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., our keynote speaker will be Matt Kibbe, who's over here, and he will be talking to us before we have our business session, so everyone's invited to that. Business session includes election of officers and executive committee members. Let's see, speakers tomorrow include Charles Olson and Arvin Vohra from the Libertarian National Committee. And so just watch your schedule for that.
David Friedman.
Oh, how could I forget him? Our lunch speaker tomorrow, David Friedman, famous economist. Can't forget David. And so anyway, as you heard from Baron, please, your contributions are very important to us. The political campaigns will be coming up next year. Like you said, it takes a lot to fund.
Who do they turn them into?
We'll have someone go around and pick them up.
Ted will collect them, Ted will collect them.
Or Angela. Okay, so basically, it costs about over $3,500 to file for a statewide office. It costs about $5,000 maximum for a candidate statement. So we really need candidates to run for offices like governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. Those are the most visible offices. And of course, as usual, I and others will be recruiting for the state legislative and congressional offices and all. We really need libertarians out there to promote the cause, and that's how you do it during the campaigns. Because again, most people don't pay attention to politics except during political campaigns, so we have to be there. If we're not there, they won't know we're there. Anyway, please, thanks for coming, thanks for your contributions, and we'll see you tomorrow.